Okay, let's talk. First, I would like to thank everyone for your amazing support. This has been crazy. I'm falling asleep one night with 637 subs, and then I wake up the next morning with 845. It's incredible. I really can't say in words how much I appreciate how amazingly supportive you guys have. And I do want to clarify that this video that I'm doing, this follow-up, first of all, it was requested by a bunch of people in the comments section on the video, so if you didn't leave a comment or didn't look at the section, that's why I'm doing this, is because people just straight up asked for it, and you got me to 500 subs, and I figure, hey, why not do what people want for that? But funny thing about that is that I reached 1,000 subs before I could upload this follow-up, so now I need to think of something to do to thank you guys for 1,000 subs. So if you want to put suggestions for that down in the comment section below, I would really appreciate it, because I don't know what to do. It's been so fast. I didn't plan this in advance, and I'm kind of scared. Also, I apologize in advance if anything that I talk about isn't quite as energetic as you're used to seeing from me. This is actually the second time I'm recording all of this, because like an idiot, I forgot that when I minimize my software for recording, on my computer, what happens is that it stops recording. So I minimized that like 2 seconds in and recorded thought I was recording 30 minutes of discussion, and apparently I wasn't. Or maybe I'm just an idiot. Let me double check. Yeah, so I just checked, and what I think actually happened is that when I stood up after I set everything up for recording, my camera just disconnected. So I think that's what messed up the initial recording. So if I seem a little bit slow this time around, that's probably why. But anyway, preamble aside, let's get on with the video. So a lot of people wanted to know my opinion regarding Bellows as a character post Elsewhere and Elsewhen. And I will say that my stance on him has changed a lot, but probably not as much as people expect. For one thing, I was very surprised to find out that Bellows just straight up hates witches. I think that when I was considering Bellows during the script and the editing and stuff for my review of him, that I thought that he was being genuine when he was saying that he wanted the best for witches, that he truly believed that his coven system and the different specific kinds of magic that he believes in, I thought that he believed in them. I thought that he believed in the coven system and his laws, and I thought that he was doing it all to strengthen witches and to get them closer to the Titan. I thought that he was a kind of religious zealot, which is definitely not the case now, and I'm well aware of that at this point. He's very manipulative, is what he is. And I always knew he was manipulative. I always knew he was a liar. I didn't understand to what extent, I didn't think that he was lying about everything, and I assumed that he told the coven leaders at least what the Day of Unity was, or what they were working towards. But now I'm not so sure, I don't think he did tell them exactly what it was, or if he did tell them, he told them a lie. He told them something that isn't what the Day of Unity actually is, because he clearly doesn't care about witches at all. He doesn't want them to live happy lives. He doesn't give a shit about them. He will sacrifice them without even thinking about it. And what is interesting to me about that is that it makes a lot of sense when you think about not just where Bellows came from, but when. He's a human, but he's not just a human from modern day Earth like Luz is. No, he's a human from what, the 1600s? So he has tons of bigotry and racism boiled up inside of him. He's very clearly from a Western culture, right? Probably England or somewhere related to that general area of the world. And one of the big things about that culture was that they didn't like foreigners. They didn't like people of different skin tones and people of different sexualities. They didn't approve of that stuff. And the Boiling Isles loves that stuff. The Boiling Isles is full of diversity. Everyone is different. Everybody looks different. There's all of these freaks of nature from a 1600 gentleman's perspective. So for him to show up there and see all of this like rampant racial harmony, because like it's a very progressive society what Lilith and Luz come back to with all of the wild magic and all of this stuff. It's a very nice, calm society, you know? Like when somebody sees a cripple on the road, they don't just ignore them like Belos' society probably would. They say, "Oh no, how terrible! Let me help you out," and in seconds they help them out. Like that's kind of the thing. That's why I think that kind of society works that way, is because assisting somebody who is hurting is so easy. You know, you just wave your hands and boom, the cart's fixed, the arm is fixed, everything about them is fine. Like it takes 2 seconds and it makes the other person so happy. So why not do it, you know? Whereas back in the day, it took so much more effort just to keep somebody alive for a little longer. So people just didn't even try in some cases, especially if you couldn't afford it. They required payment, and if you couldn't get the payment, you were done. Like, that's just kind of how it went. And that's because we didn't have magic. And Belos sees all of this magical stuff coming out of these people that he doesn't care about and probably even hates to some extent, just like by on principle, you know? Because like that's the way hatred works back then, and often works a lot in the modern day too. It's just you hate somebody on principle based on how they look or how they act. And I think that that's a really good villain to use for this show, you know, because like the Owl House is trying to do so much in terms of like changing the perspective on LGBT and trying to bring that perspective to like, you know, younger audiences. And I think that that's really cool. And it's also perfect that they have that villain, that archaic style of thinking, because it shows that it is an archaic style of thinking. Having this villain from a different time, a different era of the same world that Luz came from, it's a demonstration of like the old ways versus the new, and how we need to start accepting the new way of thinking regarding different ethnicities and different, you know, sexualities. And I think that that's a very, very good subtle undertone. Like, I think that that's a very good thing to loop into this show. And I'm a little worried they're not going to be able to explore it fully because they're not going to have enough time. But, you know, they're doing the best that they can, and I really, really appreciate what they're putting in right now, because that was, like, they crammed a lot into that one episode, and I'm really impressed. I'm always impressed in how they do this. Like I said, time management is the best thing about this show. It is the thing that these creators are best at doing. And I feel like they are that way because they have to be. Like, because they haven't been given enough time to do what they need to do with the show. Because, you know, Disney's full of homophobic people. Like, I don't know. It's pretty cool, honestly. I'm very excited to see what comes up. Whether or not I'm actually correct in my assumptions about, like, this undertone. Also, I was thinking more, because there were a few comments about what I said about Belos looking at Luz with kind of respect as an opponent. And I think I want to rephrase that a little bit. It is a kind of respect, but it's not the kind I was thinking of initially. Like, I want to say that, especially given the context now of their interactions, you know, centuries prior, that Luz to Belos is an annoyance. She's a nuisance. She didn't really disrupt his plans very much. She only delayed them, and that's in both cases. Both times he's met her so far, right? Like, she caused him pain and kept his sacrifice from really being a sacrifice, but he still got what he wanted. And same thing with the portal, you know? He still got the portal. He can rebuild it easy. She just, you know, made him have to rebuild it, and that was a little annoying. So he is just annoyed by her, you know? He thinks that she's a brat. He thinks that she doesn't really understand how the world works, or even worse, He thinks that she does, and that the world that she came from has gotten worse in his absence, and now he needs to put that right too. And the interesting thing about that is that even considering her an annoyance is giving Luz a lot of credit. It is giving her a lot of respect, because nobody gets to annoy him. Like, nobody else manages to bring him that far. Ida doesn't do that. She's never been able to bring his plans to the point where he's getting kind of annoyed that you're making this more difficult than it has to be. Nobody has managed to get that far. So for Luz to be the first one to do it, it shows a kind of disgusted respect in a way. And I think that that's very cool. It makes me love Luz all the more. Like, she's a fantastic character, and she's so fucking great. I love everybody in this show. All of the characters are so cool. About Belos hating witches, I think that the Day of Unity isn't Belos taking over the human realm. Like he said, he's not going to do that. I think he's going to take over the Boiling Isles with the humans at his back. I think he's going to try to convince humanity to colonize the Boiling Isles. And just saying that feels so gross. It makes me want to vomit, like, thinking about how that's going to work. Because, like, he comes from the 1600s. I'm not a history buff, but I feel like they were already thinking with the mindset of, let's go to war with these guys and take their stuff. At the very least, they were thinking about going to war with other people, because there were few times in history where, like, nations were not at war just for the purpose of getting more land or some other interest in some other resource. But because of that, like, wartime thought, thinking about this from the perspective of, these people have something that I want, and I don't care about them, so I'm going to take it. I'm pretty damn sure that is the perspective that Belos is treating the Boiling Isles with. This world has magic. This world can cure disease instantly. This world can wage war so effectively, and yet they don't. These people are idiots for not using magic the way that they should. Not only should I correct them, but I should bring this to my world. I think that's what he wants to do. I think that he wants to take over the Boiling Isles for humanity. Which is terrifying, honestly. It's terrifying to the point of disgust. And I could be wrong about this, because that seems like a very dark turn to take a kid's show, you know? That seems a little bit too much, even for something this subversive. But if they do it, I am going to be freaking out. Because that's such a good plot progression, you know? Like, I wouldn't be surprised if that's the kind of thing that Dana and or her other writers thought about, but Disney shot down because it's too much. Like, I don't know. It's a really fascinating thought, though, right? Like, I think that it would be really cool to see the show get in that direction. It probably won't, but it would be really cool to see it. To clarify, it would be really cool if Belos outed that as being his plan. Not if it happened. I don't want that to happen. I want that to be the thing that he's threatening, and for Luz to kick his ass because he's racist and shitty. Anyway. Yeah, I think that's pretty much everything. Not much else about my interpretations on Belos has changed. I still think that he doesn't really care about Luz's problems. I don't think that he cares much about Hunter's problems. I think that he just wants to get his big plan finished before he dies. I think that he wants to have a legacy, and that supersedes everything else. Like, I think that's the biggest thing for him right now. Nothing else matters. Everything else is beneath him. I still stand by that interpretation. I'm probably not going to make another one of these videos, by the way, touching on, like, topics I've already covered in other videos, because I don't really want to do that. I want to move on to other media. I want to, you know, dive deep into a little bit of everything, to be honest. I have passion for a lot of things, and I want to let that flow, you know? Like, I don't want to be the Owl House channel, if that makes sense. Not that that's a bad thing. There are Owl House channels out there, and they do great work, and I'm really happy that they exist because the Owl House definitely deserves it, but I don't want to be one of them. That's really all it is. So before I move on to the thing that I managed to piss everybody off with, let me just real quick plug a few things in. If you are looking for updates about any of my videos discussing, whatever I'm working on, please follow me on Twitter, because I post a lot of stuff on there that just kind of sits in the empty void. Sometimes it's just weird comedic thought blurbs. Like, I think I mentioned at one point that I'm obsessed with snails on there. And that's actually true, and I was going to make an April Fool's video on that, but that just didn't happen. So sometimes you'll just see weird snail facts. Sometimes you'll see random thoughts that just occur in my head sporadically. And sometimes you'll get video updates and information about when the next video might be out. I also post about when I'm going to stream on Twitter, and I'll be streaming this Sunday at 7 p.m. with a good friend of mine, Krine Sojin, on Twitch. Twitch.tv/unholybasil. My Twitter account is twitter.com/Jordan Szymanski. So I post on Twitter when I'm going to stream, and I stream on Twitch. So go ahead and follow those if you want to see those streams and see those little thought blurbs and updates, etc., etc. Lastly, if you really want to support me and make this my full-time job as soon as possible, then I recommend you head over to my Patreon. Now, my Patreon is still under construction because I haven't really been able to figure out any things that I think people would want to pay me to do for them. Things that would be reasonable for me to do, But I'm starting to figure some more of them out. And I am going to have Patreon exclusive content. I have at least one video on there already. So, if you're interested, it's just $1 to get access to the Patreon exclusive stuff, and it's pretty fun. You might like it. You can also post on a poll that I made on Patreon to suggest what my next video is going to be. Now, I will eventually get to the Patreon poll suggestions, but I already have a few ideas in my head right now, so it might take a second. So if you want to hold off on giving those suggestions for a couple of months, like hold off on subbing to the Patreon for a couple of months until I have finished up with my immediate ideas, I'm not going to blame you. But every penny I get through Patreon gets me closer and closer to making this a full-time gig, which is a dream job for me. So please, if you have the money to spare and you really want to see me do more, go ahead and head to Patreon. Links to everything in the description below. So let's talk about Palpatine. So the only thing I'm going to apologize for is not specifying which films I was talking about. In the video, I was thinking that I was talking about episodes 4 through 6, but I realize now that I never specified that that's what I was discussing. And it probably didn't help that I kept using the word Palpatine instead of the Emperor or Darth Sidious, because those are what he's referred by in episodes 4 through 6. I don't think we ever get the word Palpatine in those films. So that was on me. I made a mistake there. I am human. I apologize. However, in my defense, it was a single example leading up to the main point of my video. I wasn't thinking about it too hard because it was like, 10-15 seconds? I really didn't consider it that important, and I kind of still don't. However, now that I have specified that I am talking about the main trilogy, that is episodes 4 through 6, I'm going to double down. Palpatine is not a character in those films. He is a plot device. He exists purely to give Vader direct orders to make Luke look cool and to give Vader an opportunity to redeem himself. He does nothing else in any of the films that is of any consequence. Any in the episodes of 4 through 6. Yes, he does a lot of stuff in episodes 1 through 3. Apparently he does stuff in 9. I'm a little upset by that. I feel like we all are. We can at least agree on that, right? But in episodes 4 through 6, Palpatine is a bad villain. I never said that there were no people in the world who liked Palpatine. I know people who like Palpatine exist. I just haven't met them. That's what I said. I have never met anyone who likes Palpatine. And given that I was in a Star Wars The Old Republic roleplay guild for 6 years and helped lead said guild and met many Star Wars aficionados while doing that, I was pretty confident in that statement. There are not that many people who like Palpatine. There are a lot more people who like Darth Vader, which is why I'm kind of surprised that I didn't get people hating on me for saying I'm not a fan of Darth Vader.
Everyone but me loves Darth Vader. Everyone but me loves Darth Vader. Everyone but me loves Darth Vader.
Like, I can kind of understand the Palpatine thing. Like, I didn't specify that I wasn't talking about the prequels, I was just talking about the main trilogy. I can understand why people were upset about that. I don't understand why nobody's upset that I'm not a fan of Vader. Like, he's the fucking favorite Star Wars character at this point. Like, everybody talks about how cool Vader is, and I'm just not a fan. Also, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of enjoy talking about Star Wars because I have the opposite opinion of everybody who loves the series. Like, I think that the prequels are fantastic, and I'm not a fan of the main trilogy at all. I think it's kind of weak. And I really like Episode 7. I think that's my favorite. And Episode 8 had some of the highest highs, but it also had some of the lowest lows. And Episode 9 doesn't exist as far as I'm concerned. I think that's the one thing that most people are going to agree with me on. Please, come, hate me. Speak in the comments section. Make me kneel. Or at least, try. Ain't I a stinker? Well, there it is. There's my follow-up video. Again, thank you all so much for all of your support. It's really blowing me away how much people are flocking to One Villainous Scene. It really is, it means the world to me. If you have any interest in seeing more of my content, I have made 2 pretty long videos. One of them is on Starlight Brigade, so if you haven't seen that music video by Twerp, please go watch it. It's a fantastic music video, and if you want to dive deeper into it, you can watch my analysis of the video. It was a lot of fun to make. I think it's my favorite video that I've made so far. And if you're interested in Invincible, and specifically in the meals in Invincible, the little symbolism there, you can watch my video on the topic. It's about as long as my video on Starlight Brigade, which is like 40 minutes, so feel free to dig in if you're interested. Again, I have a Twitch account, twitch.tv/unholybasil. I have a Twitter account, twitter.com/JordanSzymanski, and I have a Patreon account, patreon.com/unholybasil. So if you're interested in literally any of those things, please do check them out. I'm going to be streaming on Sundays mostly for the foreseeable future because that is the most common day for me to get off from work, but we'll see if that changes. I'll let you guys know on Twitter, give you updates on that. I think that's just about everything. So yeah, take it easy. I'll see y'all later. Peace.